Maybe you remember how you yourselves were in this position, or now you can put yourself in the shoes of your children, and let's go back to those times. Moreover, we would like to literally invite you to step for a minute in a jolly classroom through a video. Make yourself comfortable. See if you like it. Think about what you like in terms of teaching and learning. And please share with us your thoughts. Kindly share your thoughts in the chat box. Thank you. So, do you like those classes? And what do you like about them? Can we see the chat? Oh, yeah, they are lively. You're right. Everyone is involved. That's a great help for the teacher. Indeed. The energy, the happiness, the smiles, right? Positivity. Indeed. Teachers are relaxed because the children are doing a lot of their job, don't they? How natural they are. Yes, happiness indeed. So, Yvonne and myself are going to give you a few tips today about how you can transform your classes right now at the beginning of the school year by actually turning some of the game features into educational tools. To start with, we are going to clarify the concept of what gamification is. We are also going to see which elements of games could we actually take into our ELT classes in order to boost cognitive and emotional development with our children. And we are going to actually exemplify these practices, game practices, on some lovely, jolly classroom activities, as Yvonne will display later on. But again, to start with, can you please access this code and share with us what do you think is appealing to children when they play games? Because students, our students, are gamers, aren't they? They play games outside in the field. They play board games. They play computer games. They play phone games. So, what do you think makes games appealing to children? Again, kindly share your thoughts in the chat. Oh, yeah, the dopamine, adrenaline, right? The rush, control, rewards. Yeah, I'm actually going to share this. I hope I will be able to share the results with you for a minute. Yeah, it is a way of learning, definitely. Even by playing games, children learn. Competition, yeah. The story, that's a very good point. There is a plot that goes on. Visuals, you mentioned colors, vivid colors, pictures. Action, yes, they are actually in charge all the time. Rewards, bonding, maybe collaborating in a team. Excellent. Leaderboards, for the competition factor. Winning, or on the contrary, yes, resilience, if not winning. Variety. You're right. Thank you. Thank you. Lovely ideas. And we are going to actually see how we can take some of these game-like elements into our classes. It would be wonderful, actually, yes, to change them into educational tools. Now, I must start by telling you that we are not going to talk about using games in our classes. Teachers have been doing it for a long time, and I think we have been doing it successfully, haven't we? Now, gamification is somehow a relatively new concept, and it actually means, borrowing the features of a game and taking it into a non-game context. For example, teaching reading and writing. You wouldn't normally think about reading and writing as a game. However, there are tremendous benefits for the cognitive and emotional development of a kid if we can actually, implement some of the features into our lesson plan. And educationists have spoken about this for for quite a long time. They've been doing research and they found out that actually implementing game features in classes will boost children's inner motivation. There is extrinsic motivation for a start, but apparently, little by little, step by step, it turns into an intrinsic one because what kids enjoy the most is their story of success. They take great pleasure in seeing that, that they can succeed, that they can actually apply knowledge, be better, progress. So they like this feeling of, being able. They like also the feeling that they are taking their own decisions, they are making their own decisions, that they are in control, that they are somehow autonomous. And also the feeling that what they are doing makes great sense for them, it's relevant to them. Then when we think about children playing games, I think we all have the same image in our mind. Remember the kids who are extremely focused on a screen and can hardly breathe. They never hear or see what goes around. Yeah, it's pretty much the same image of an archer aiming at a target. I guess we all teachers would like to have such kind of students in our classrooms, yes, to be fully committed, fully engaged, yes, to actually never want for the class to stop. That would be terrible for us. So the psychologists have been speaking about this actually state of deep focus that is extremely important in order to trigger understanding and the learning process, because it's then when actually natural learning is taking place. And they've also discovered that these mechanisms of a game, meaning feedback, will actually strengthen the cognitive pathway, the connection. Yes, by doing, by trying, and I don't know, being wrong, or on the contrary, being successful, children understand that that is the right way of doing things, or that they need some slight changes, some adjustments to make, and thus they will be able to actually correct their behavior, respond to feedback on the spot, and progress and develop themselves. Now, more recently, there is this theory that embracing games in our classes, game theory in our classes, will actually help with the kids' engagement, therefore with the class management, and will also help kids retain knowledge faster and for a longer time. Now, there is such an such an app that would actually manage to incorporate such game features, and this app is actually the key foundation for developing reading and writing in English. It is a digital platform, so we are not talking about AI yet, but we are moving one step ahead from doing writing and reading paper-based. So we are getting closer to what interests our students in our classes. It is an app that has been quite recently launched by Jolly Learning to go hand in hand with the Jolly Phonics program, which is a literacy program nowadays used in a lot of countries worldwide, more than 130. Now, I'm going to show it to you how it operates, and Yvonne is going to enlarge on it. But basically, this app introduces kids to the code of English, to the sounds of English, yeah, so that kids could actually start using them in order to read and write words. So there's a special attention given to the 42 sounds in their basic way of being written, but then also attention is given to alternative spellings, to tricky words, to practicing reading and writing in English. And one more thing for us, a practical one, you only need, you don't necessarily need a smart board, though it would help. All you need is a white wall and a video projector to actually see the magic at work. So, once again, you can use it any way it suits you. It was initially thought to complement the Jolly Phonics program, which is a synthetic phonics program relying on sane teaching of students the sounds of English. Or you can just use it for revision and consolidation in your literacy activities. You can also take bits of it and use it, for example, for remedial help. Yeah, if your kids are struggling with reading and writing, and I'm talking about older students here. Or you can just use it to develop creative writing, or you can use it, to practice alternative spelling better. Anyway, it's definitely going to be an alternative to the old way of doing things, exclusively based on paper. So it is a digital support in teaching early English literacy. Now, what's the knowledge behind? So just like the Jolly Phonics program that is behind, this app, which is called Jolly Classroom, actually starts from the smallest unit of a language, which is the sound, and takes kids to the 42 sounds of the English language in order to get them to the point where they can actually combine them in order to get words for reading and writing. Now, we start from simple sounds and easily progress to more complicated ones, such as the digraphs, groups of letters like A here, or O, or E, O, or U, and also consonant blends. If we encounter children who cannot hear the R in frog, for example, then special attention is given to consonant blends. So kids start from something simple, and very soon, when a pool of sounds become available, now they can immediately start using them in order to decode and write words. They don't even know that it is called dictation, but when we ask them at the end of group 1, for example, to write the word spin. And we ask them, okay, can you please hold up a finger for each sound you hear in the word spin? The kids will go s, p, I, n. Perfectly. Now let's write down the letters corresponding to those sounds. So this is once again a phonetic approach, which starts from the assumption that if a child knows 10 words, he will only be able to read and write 10 words. But if a child knows 10 sounds, by combining them, he will be able to read and write tens of words. So this is quite a new approach, but it's already in use in so many countries and in so many schools, probably including yours. And the idea behind is to actually take kids on a step-by-step progress from very simple things to the point when they actually understand the code and make sense of it. Now, starting with what you've told me, children find appealing in games, I've put here some of the most visible elements of games that you can actually encounter in various activities on the Jolly Classroom app. And definitely one of them is the one that I mentioned, meaning progression. Children understand that the language, that English works as a code and that there are some rules behind. They understand that there is a correspondence between the letters, groups of letters, and the sounds they produce. And they become able at some point, quite soon in their learning, to actually be able to read and write, which gives them tremendous satisfaction. It gives them motivation to see that they have been successful and to see that they can actually do something that only adults can do, which means reading and writing in English. So this sense of progression is extremely important because all the time they can see where they stand only by looking at this chart of English sounds. They can see how far they've progressed and what's ahead. So they've got a feeling of, evolving, of progressing all the time. Now, feedback is also important. And sometimes in our classes, when we do dictation in the classical way, it takes a long time. And sometimes we cannot grant feedback to all the kids in our classes, can we? Now, what a digital app obviously can do is actually give instantaneous feedback through auditory, visual clues, lights, progress bars, so that again, kids will understand, okay, if they've been successful, if they've been wrong, what was wrong, so that they will later on correct. And probably the most appealing element of games that will come in the Jolly Classroom app, and it's extremely enjoyable by young kids, is obviously the storytelling aspect, the narrative. There is a plot, there are stories that introduce their favorite characters all the time. For them, the whole program is actually a quest. It's actually an adventure of meeting various characters that will introduce sounds in a nice, pleasant way by putting them in context and giving them meaning. So, only because of these three elements, but there are so many others actually to be found throughout the app, you can actually see how important and how important such an approach to reading and writing would be, and how big the change in attitude towards learning would be in our students. Yes, they will find themselves actually, fully indulged in the program. They would like, to actually see how they've moved. They would like to receive feedback. They would like to contribute to the stories and make them their own. So by doing this, we actually we gather and we gain a lot as teachers in our classes from the point of view of students' engagement. Storytelling, once again, I just want to insist a bit upon it because basically every sound is introduced through a story, which is focused in terms of vocabulary around a specific sound. For example, when we teach kids the ow sound, like in cloud, house, mouse, and we introduce the OU spelling, we actually tell them the story of a girl called Emily who was teaching to sew, but she wasn't paying enough attention. So she pricked her thumb and she went, ouch. So, ow, ouch, ow is the sound that is very familiar for kids, is easy to grasp, and it's also easy to remember. So, by doing this and using an action, the children will always remember the story. And they are also going to, set the knowledge of the correspondence between OU as a group of letters and the OW sound. There are characters that, you know, come in the story, like the fellows behind me all the time. And really, the kids are, all the time involved in a story, either by having to listen to the words in order to spot the sounds, or by looking at the visuals in order to find, for example, the characters that come up in all the stories, Inky, Snake, and Bee, or for finding the hidden eyes, or for, hunting for small details that they are going to use in order to get a larger context of the story. So, story is definitely a very important hook. Children love it. They even put themselves in the shoes of the characters. They get, completely immersed. They identify themselves. And what's more, by moving from one story to another, they are actually, without even realizing, gaining solid knowledge of the sounds. And that will give them huge, huge motivation because they will understand that actually English works as a code, that there are some rules that can be broken once they know these correspondences. One thing about progression, we said that we are moving from simple letters, from the sound that apparently is most widely used in English, which is the S sound. We are moving on to A, T, E, P, N. Some of the sounds are quite easy because they are the same sounds in the Romanian language. Some of them will prove a bit tricky. For example, the vowels, A and A and E. So we are actually scaffolding their knowledge. We are moving to more complex things, but we always go back to revise. We always recycle the knowledge that the students have had previously. When they are introduced to a new sound, that's actually an opportunity to recycle the sounds that they know and use the new sounds in order to be able to read and write new words. And because they get this kind of understanding and this kind of autonomy, they will actually be able to practically access any textbook, any article, any blog, as long as they know and master these correspondences. So yeah, it's a very nice idea here, and I'd like to insist that by going back, yes, and revisiting and revising the sounds that they know, we are actually putting children all the time in a comfort area because their skill perfectly matches the challenge. Yes, we are not exposing them to anything that they haven't been introduced to. We are really treating kids with respect. We are equipping them with everything they need in order to perform before actually asking them to do more serious tasks. And one more thing about that I'd like to add here about challenges is that sometime, yes, they will need to step out of their comfort zone, but just a bit, just a bit, as Yvonne is going to prove through activities in a minute, in order to actually gain more understanding of how the code works. About the feedback, I mentioned that actually what kids are supposed to do in order to read and write, for reading, they are supposed to look at the letters, say the sounds for those letters, and come with a continuous flow of the word. Yeah, so we go ch, e, s, t, chest. For writing, they are supposed to actually listen to the word, hold up a finger for each sound they hear, and write down letters for those sounds. So the app, the Jolly Classroom app, will come with correct pronunciation of the word to validate their reading, and will also come with nice visuals color coded in order to mark their successful writing of a certain word. They get such feedback in real time, yeah, so that they will act immediately on improving, changing, or keeping the same path of doing things. And then yeah, obviously, this helps, with their cognitive learning. Yes, things will be deepened, information will be deepened, and it will be better understood because of this way of getting instant feedback. I'd like to say that unlike a game, unlike a real game, Jolly app, Jolly Classroom doesn't use rewards or, I don't know, leaderboards, which some of the students might find less appealing. But I personally think that this is a great pedagogical hook because it will give wider space for intrinsic motivation. Actually, at the end of the quest, at the end of the journey through the 42 sounds, the big epic achievement won't be saving the city from zombies, but it will actually be, being able to read and write in English like adults do. And it is a nice balance. The teacher is at the heart of the app as a facilitator. The teacher will be the one to actually, set the rules of the classroom, just like in a game. It will also be the one to actually decide which activities to do, at which pace, when to stop, when to consolidate, assess informally all the time, and take some actions when spotting struggling children. At the same time, yeah, it is quite a controlled environment, but at the same time, the children have actually all the freedom to choose, make choices in choosing the right letters for the sounds they hear, yeah, using the knowledge that they have in order to become actually autonomous users of English. We want our students to be active players, yeah, active gamers. And with the app, they will have this possibility of actually making choices. Now, the last thing that you are going to see in the activities is that actually children are engaged in very many ways. Yes, there will be something in there for the auditory learners. Yes, there will be, for example, a song or the correct pronunciation of a word or new words being introduced with their pronunciation. There will be something for the visual learners. Yes, there will be a story with lots of details that can contribute to their oral skills, to their development of oral skills. There will be something for the learners who like to fidget and move in our classroom. But there will be a bit of everything in each of our classes. So no matter a child is, stronger from the visual point of view, he will still be faced to some auditory elements, kinesthetic elements, so that in a way he will be taken out of the safe zone, but still in a controlled, yeah, and still in a non dangerous way. Enough talking. Yvonne, are you ready to share with us some activities of what real happens in the classroom?
I am very much so. And I think we're going to swap PowerPoints now. And this is always the most nerve-wracking point where we change PowerPoints and I go into share. So what you've had is a great foundational introduction to what I'm going to show you next. Let's have a look. And can you see my screen? Are we all okay? Is it working? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, let me just go into open up mode. So we should be showing the full screen now. So thankfully, you've had a great foundational knowledge introduced to you about how Jolly Classroom works. And also the most important thing that Silvana has highlighted are the levels of engagement. Now, the product itself is designed to work with early years and kind of moving up into primary. So we've considered all those elements in there. So the levels of engagement are teacher-led. We know exactly how far we go with the levels of our class and where we can take them to. And this is very important when using this type of application, that it has that flexibility, it's fluid, that you have the core of the teaching, and also, as you see there in one of my points there, the pace of teaching. Now, the pace of teaching is incredibly important using an app like Jolly Classroom, in that we know that revision is built in at the beginning of the program and consolidation is following after the core application of the teaching point. Silvana really explained everything about how these 42 sounds are put together and paced so that we are giving children that, I call it a learning spiral, in that they're getting that foundational knowledge all the time. And as we are expanding, we always go back to the main teaching point. The very first sound that they did is embedded right to the 42nd sound that we get there. Now, the approach that we have, as Silvana mentioned, it's a highly engaging approach for children, which means that we have considered the learning styles of children. Let's think about it. You as an adult, can you name how you learn? And it'd be interesting if you put in the chat, how do you learn? Are you audio visual? Are you a tactile learner? Are you a combination of things? Just pop in the chat and let's see if you can recognize your learning style. Let's see what's coming up. Audio visual. Okay. So a lot of us are audio visual, actually. Are you a note taker? I have to write lots of notes and I like having that interaction of looking and writing because that kind of consolidates it for me. A combination. Yeah. But just imagine when you are 5, 6, or 7, you don't know what your learning style, and the teacher doesn't know either. So in giving this fluid lesson using the app, we're able to address all those learning styles that the children may have. And also, I like to use this expression about a wraparound lesson, in that in all the engagement and the core teaching, we open and we close and it is secure, meaning that we've started with revision so that children who may be falling behind, and this goes back to that teacher-led approach, she can engage more with perhaps more revision at the beginning. And this is effortless because it's like a game. And also, when we get to the end of consolidation, the teacher can also decide how much more do I need to do. And then this can go back to the hybrid approach where I've given my core using Jolly Classroom. But do you know what? May reach out to those children who might enjoy looking at flashcards, interacting, finger tracking, tactile. And we must be mindful that there is that combination with the approach. And of course, there is the lesson flow, which is really important. When I was a teacher in class, it was always a great plan, but many of us know that with great plans, we have to allow for the child who doesn't get it or it's done too quickly. And you need to have something that you can go to. And the one good thing about the program is there is a whole glossary of activities that can support that last 5 minutes where everything is done and you think, what am I going to do for 5 minutes? We can go on to blending. We can do some more games that include vowel sounds, as Silvana mentioned. So there are a lot of options using it. So the gamification process came about as we realized that there was a shift. And the shift was that the paper resources were a great way for children to get all these skills in place. But what has happened over the last decade is that children's learning styles and also what they come to school with is completely different. Many of them are digitally literate and not literate in the other way. They certainly know how to navigate a screen. They certainly know what a tablet and a mobile is for. And so at Jolly, we decided we had to think of a way that was embracing this change, but also not going down the route that it was all bling bling, points and bam bam, we called it. Soft and fluffy. What we did want was some concrete learning to come into the gamification aspect, but also a balanced literacy delivery. This meant that we had fidelity to the program, but also recognized that the games we had to put into the app also needed to reach children who may need support, one-to-one support, have English as an additional language, and also children working on an individual educational plan. And within the app, we have these games categorized alongside with the core teaching. We also have an element that allows you to choose where the reinforcement is needed. Also, we needed children to have a feeling of a sense of achievement. And within the program, we have something which is called the 5 key skills. And the 5 key skills were core to developing this, so that along with all the gamification and the methodology that Silvana explained to you, we kept to what children need, which is understanding that a letter shape has a sound, how handwriting is connected to this, and also the tricky words and blending and segmenting. So these are within every lesson to a lesser and greater degree. And I go back to being teacher-led, where you as the teacher know what your class needs. Many of you have a class each year where you don't know what the levels of your children are, and it's hard to determine how do I plan succinctly to get that right. So with the app, you have that option to be able to follow the lesson plan and then focus where you need to more. So I've mentioned about addressing the learning styles, but more than anything, I'd like to mention that the vocabulary acquisition is also high within the game. One of the things I remember being a teacher in Spain for 20 years was it was great. I had great production. I had children reading, but comprehension was always something I had to work with. And certainly with young children, the visual cues that are easy to see and spot was really important. We don't want confusion as children are making that connection between I see that picture, I can name it in my own language, and now I'm giving it another name in English. So if I see a cup, I know what it is. In Spanish, it's a taza. If I'm learning it in English, I know that that image also is cup. So apart from that, we are aware that embedded in many curriculum desires is the digital literacy aspect. What we did consider, our parents are worried that children may be spending over a period of their school day too much time engaged with digital components. And how could we deliver literacy in a balanced way that we were also seeing the demonstration of what they were learning using the app was coming through with reading and writing. And that's where children are using their knowledge in a meaningful way. So we had a lot to think about, also thinking about what Silvana has mentioned to you, to get the balance right for children. So when we say teacher-led, what the teacher is doing is able to look at what the app is giving them for that lesson. And it's in 3 steps, and we call it a concertina lesson, where you have everything listed out. So when we're doing the first step of Jolly Classroom, we say don't cut out any of that, because it's important, but you can use it to a lesser or a greater degree. And as you move on with the other steps, as you can see here, we're in step 2. The teacher is able to navigate the children and also their time. Now, I was talking to a school on Tuesday who said, look, we've only got 30 minutes. We've only got 30 minutes. How do I build all this in? Well, it's there for you. You know how much you want to spend on this part because your children are needing that support, but you can cut down on the time on that part because they're working really well. So you have that flexibility as a teacher. And additionally, you can also monitor how you want to use the app to go forward. And here, this teacher in this class, this is a class, I use this as a highlight, is in the East End of London, and every single child in this class has English as a second language. So British teachers are having the same challenges as teachers who are working away from England. So what has been involved within the design is that we had to make sure that we weren't skipping through the foundational skills too quickly, that we are building. Now, teaching phonics is quite repetitive. We have to keep going over the sounds. We have to make sure children are making that correlation with that letter sound and what they hear. We know that children get confused between but and duh, but and duh. And also that it's that we're not creating a cognitive overload with too much information. Also, the motivation. The motivation is what I see and what I'm doing with the app. I can reproduce on a piece of paper or a whiteboard. Success is there. I'm moving forward. And even though we understand very small children may not have the fine motor skills to pick up a pen, we do suggest that we have extensive multisensory activities like a sand tray or using plasticine to make that connection, what they're seeing digitally and what they can produce themselves. So that we just don't leave them hanging. There are solutions to bring what is on that screen into meaningful, hands-on, playful learning, even away from the app. And Silvana mentioned the deep focus. The deep focus is there when we do the core part of the lesson, and the reinforcement is the playful part. So let's have a look at how this works. Now, Silvana mentioned about stories being key. In step 1, we do start with stories because they're very engaging. And I'm going to talk over this video. So if I can get it going, here we go. There we go. So this is the story. So this is the very first lesson that children are engaged with. And as we can see, it's a bright visual. And also there is the text for the teacher to play. But we often recommend that, look, you know the level of your children. Why not look at the teacher's book or the notes embedded in the classroom and make the story more meaningful using the language at the level the children have. Within the story are context words. Now, as you can see here, we have this playful aspect of the story where we have this loop, this looking in, where we've got this microscope where we can really focus in to talk about the sounds. We have Samson, we have Sam, we have a stick, we have 6. So I'm focusing in, I'm zooming in on this lesson. So the children who have heard the story are making that visual cue along with the words they are hearing. Embedded in the story are certain keywords that have the sound. But you know, I can now make this, it's not going to be a one-dimensional activity. The children have played around, and I want to make sure that they are enjoying the story and also engaged in it. So I can have an I Spy, I can ask questions, and of course, English as a second language. I'm going to ask questions and the children will respond in their own language because they don't know the word yet. This is an excellent opportunity for vocabulary acquisition. So if I say, you know, can you see that? So I can go in the tools, I can draw down, I can do a big circle, and I say, what is that? And they'll answer in their own language. And I'll say, you're right, because they are right. They don't know the word for sun in English yet, but I'm going to give that to them. And they can say, what does it say to each other? What is it? It's a sun. It's a sun. And I can either zoom in and just focus on working with this story and getting children to interact, or I can zoom out and extend it to children who may have more language to talk about parts of the body, the weather, what do you see? I'm giving you a lot of solutions here. I wouldn't do this all with one story. So from the very beginning, what we are doing is getting children's engagement, bringing them to interact. And this is what has been successfully done with big books and stories in the classroom. But remember, I'm working for specific criteria here in that they are doing the layer to shape, the layer to sound. The story is keying into all those words that have the sound at the beginning, the middle, and the end. So they are not just learning initial sound phonics. They're getting a very big variety of sounds to bring in. So they are engaged, interactive, and equally, as Silvana mentioned, this image will connect to everything else that they're doing within the program, along with the illustrations, the color coordination. So my very first interaction for the children is one that is really focusing on acquisition, getting them used to using the program. There will be some predictability as they understand that in the first step for Jolly Classroom, they will be hearing the story. But remember, the story can be used in different ways. And this is where the fluidity of how you use the program works. How much emphasis should I put on the story? It's my opener. I'm inviting the children to build up their knowledge. And remember, it's this learning spiral. The words that are embedded in the story are ones that are using everything they've learned from the last lesson. So children are in a safe place. We never put them in the position that they are learning something they haven't already done when I'm introducing the new concept. They get the new sound, but we are also revising what they have learned before. So that learning spiral is constantly being consolidated in a way. So if we look here with even the basic gamification on what we have, let's see if I get this. Right, so we've got the sound G, a nice big
Dragon.
graphing. We have the keywords.
Goat. Lamp. Frog.
So I hope you're hearing that
Yeah.
okay. So I'm reinforcing
Dragon.
the sounds, I'm repeating. Now I'm also getting children to come up and go to the toolbar. Has that got the G sound? Dragon. So I'd talk about
Yeah.
that. And again,
Goat.
let's listen to the sound. Another child comes up and they pick a color. Oh no, we're going to go for the same colors to make sure that it's right.
Lamp.
Lamp. Lamp.
Lamp.
Lamp. Does that sound right? Is there a G in lamp? So sound discrimination. Now, what we are doing, let's go for the last one. I'm going to repeat and get them listen all the time. G.
Frog.
Frog. So you will hear that we've had it at the beginning and the middle and the end of a word, and also the discrimination. Now, this is really visual now. I've had the children come up, do their big ticks and their crosses, but also I'm going to put the word up there as well, because, you know, you can hear it, we can see it, but we want to have the graphemes in place. So How many sounds do we have? Well, first of all, let's identify the key sound that we're looking at. And then I'm going to do my sound dots so that we can see how many sounds there are. And the children are active in this process. And we'll do some blending and segmenting so that this has now just become more than just listening to the sound, but we've also got our visual cues. A good opportunity for me to say, also, can you think of another word with G? And dog would probably be a very easy CVC word for a child to remember. And again, we can talk about the sounds, how many sounds in there, and also the, there we go, finding the key sound that we are listening to. So this
Yvonne,
gamification
sorry,
here.
sorry. Yeah, sorry for interrupting. It's time for us to say goodbye, and I wouldn't like so there are so many things that happen. Definitely, we
Okay. Well, I'll
definitely need more
quickly,
time. Yes.
yeah, I'll quickly move on then to where we can move. Wow, that has gone super quick.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So let's move on. As you can see, I could keep talking forever here. But what I would like to say is just wrapping up. This is everything that Silvana mentioned at the beginning. And as you can see, we do cover all of this succinctly. But more than anything, why don't you just try? Go on to www.jollyclassroom.com and you can get a subscription for a couple of weeks. That's as easy as that, and play around with it. Join up and get the free subscription, play around with it, and everything that I have been talking about this morning, you can put into practice. And there's so much more to share, but I can't. So play around with it, get to know it, and enjoy it.
So really try the app. Yeah,
yeah.
it is free for 1 month, and the whole school would have access to the same code, and it will really work magical in your classroom. It might be the right kind of tool that will actually, transform your classes starting this very September. Thank you, Yvonne. Thank you, everyone, and good luck with your new school year. There are lots of other things happening in Jolly Classroom. Hope we will have the opportunity some other